Have you ever dropped some serious cash on a prime rib roast only to have it turn out tough and dry? Yeah, I've been there. But here's the thing, the secret to juicy, tender, boneless prime rib roast doesn't lie in the meat itself. It's all about how you prep it, the right cut, and the way you cook it. Stick with me, and I'll walk you through the steps to make this roast perfectly tender and juicy. Let's get started. A lot of people think that the secret to perfect prime rib is just buying the best cut. But here's the thing, it's not just about the meat. It all comes down to how you prep it. Before you even think about throwing the roast onto the smoker, there are a few simple but important steps. Letting it rest, patting it dry, and getting the seasoning just right. It seems basic, right? And it is, but if you skip this part, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. I know because I've been there before. The first time I smoked a prime rib, I thought I nailed it. It looked incredible. It smelled amazing, but when I sliced into it, it was dry. It was tough, and it was completely ruined. That's when I learned prep makes all the difference. So here's what you do. First, grab a paper towel and pat the roast completely dry. Then trim off any loose or thick, hard fat that won't render during the cook. Now, keep it simple with the seasoning. Just salt and pepper. For now, that's all you need. Once it's seasoned, let it chill in the fridge for a few hours. This is called dry brining, and it's what's going to take it from good to next level juicy. Because when the salt sits on the meat, it pulls the moisture to the surface, it then dissolves, and then it reabsorbs, bringing flavor deep inside. This means that every bite will be seasoned perfectly, not just the crust. While the primer is chilling, we'll move on to something that most people don't do. We're going to make a garlic and herb butter paste, and it's ridiculously easy. What we're going to do is we're going to add some garlic, some rosemary, some thyme, some basil, red pepper flake, and some lemon juice. You're going to add all that to a food processor, along with some softened butter, and mix it until it's a thick and spreadable paste. Once you've pulled the prime rib out of the fridge, rub that butter paste all over it, and don't hold back. Cover every single inch of it. As the butter melts, it's going to base the roast in flavor, keeping it juicy and giving you that rich golden crust. It also locks in the moisture, which prevents the roast from drying out. Now, let's talk about smoking. A lot of people think cranking up the heat is the way to go, but the truth is, you want to keep the smoker between 225 and 250 degrees Fahrenheit. If you go any higher, you run the risk of having a dry roast. So low and slow is key. Now, we want to let it go at this temp for about 3 to 4 hours. And while the prime rib roast is smoking, let's talk about finding the right cut. You might be wondering, do I really need to drop a ton of cash on a fancy bone-in roast? The answer is no. A boneless cut with a nice fat cap is your best bet. Not only is it easy to work with, but it'll save you a ton of money. At my local store, a bone-in prime rib was about $22 per pound, while this boneless cut was about $15. That's a huge difference, and you're not losing any flavor. And this is coming from someone who not too long ago used to swear by bone-in roasts. But once I switched to boneless, I realized I could get the same great flavor without breaking the bank. Seriously, I wish I made the switch much sooner. Just make sure it has a nice even fat cap on top. Come at Prime to get the Prime Rib Buyer's Guide. It covers everything that you need to know about buying a prime rib roast. Now that you've got your perfect cut, let's talk doneness, because nailing the right temperature is what separates a juicy prime rib from an overcooked disappointment. And here's what you need to aim for. Rare, which is 120 to 125 degrees Fahrenheit. Medium rare, which is 130 to 135. Medium, 140 to 145. And medium well, which is 150 and above. And don't guess if your roast is done. Use a meat thermometer to get it right. Insert it into the thickest part of the roast, making sure to avoid the bone if you're cooking a bone-in cut. Hitting that bone will throw off your reading, and we don't want that. Now, I prefer to leave a meat probe in the entire time, so I can monitor the temperature without constantly opening the smoker. For the best results, pull your prime rib about 5 to 10 degrees before your target temp. The residual heat will continue cooking it as it rests, bringing it to that perfect doneness. I know you're hungry and you're ready to dig in, but trust me, this next step is just as important as the cook itself. Letting your prime rib roast isn't just a suggestion, it's the key to keeping every bite tender and juicy. As it rests, those flavorful juices redistribute throughout the meat, so when you slice into it, they don't run all out onto the cutting board. Plus, the internal temperature will continue to rise about 5 to 10 degrees, so pulling it early prevents overcooking. That's why it's so important to plan ahead and remove your roast from the smoker before it hits your target temperature. Now, when it comes to slicing, don't rush it. A sharp knife is your best friend here. You want smooth, even cuts, not jagged edges that'll tear apart all the work you just put in. And as always, slice against the grain for the most tender texture. I typically go for slices about a half an inch to an inch thick, but it's your call. Once you're done slicing, take a step back and admire that perfectly cooked prime rib and gather your friends and family because it's a meal worth sharing. But here's the thing, if you don't smoke it the right way, all that effort is going to go to waste. If you're using an electric smoker, there are a few key things you have to do just right. Otherwise, you'll end up with a dry, overcooked roast. So click on this video right here, and I'll walk you through the exact step-by-step process to get that perfect smoky prime rib. I'll see you there.